we might as well. Okay, sum up numbers. Let's take a look at it. All right, so basically, it looks like we're going to be getting a string. In this case, it's going to be a string that has some numbers and some other letters and stuff like that. And the idea is that Codemaster, well, he just got back from shopping, and I guess this is like his receipt, or yeah, maybe it's his shopping list, maybe it's his receipt. It's a little unclear, but it's one or the other. And he's giving it to Radiorg. And we basically just want to know how many things did Codemaster buy here. Okay, so this is kind of an interesting problem, I would say. I mean, there are probably a few ways we could do this one. So 2 apples, 12 oranges. I want to get a, yeah, okay, so that's kind of a strange shopping list, I guess. Payment method is invalid, so no numbers there whatsoever. Okay. So I was thinking at first maybe it's all going to be like this, like separated by commas, in which case maybe we would do like a dot split with the commas or something like that. But no, it looks like it's just going to be some string that has some numbers in it and some non-numbers as well. So let's take a look at that. All right. So basically, here's how we're going to go through it. We're going to say, let's start with something very brute force. We'll go through the string one character at a time, and we'll say let numbers be assigned the value of this empty array. And then at the end we want to return the sum of those numbers. So we'll talk about how we're going to get that. But for now, we're just going to have an array that's numbers, and we're going to loop through this string. So we'll say I0, I is less than input string dot length I plus plus. And basically what we'll say is, I guess we'll do something like, do something like this. So we've done this kind of thing before. Let number just be this empty string. And yeah, we'll keep it a string for now, and then we'll maybe try something different afterwards. But for now, it's going to be a string. And we're going to go through this, and we're going to say, well, first of all, I guess I should say character is going to be input string at I, or you know what, just since I'm calling it character, let's go ahead and do this. What I think is the more proper way of getting a particular character out of a string. So there we go. So that's our character, and we'll say if our character is a digit, yeah, if it's a digit, then basically number is going to be plus equals the character, the digit. Yeah. And maybe at that point what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and check. We've done this sort of strategy before in some of the other challenges, but we're going to do it a bit differently this time, just again for a bit of variety, a bit of the spice of life. Okay, so basically what we'll say is if either the next character is not a number, and you know what I'm realizing now? Let's just go ahead and do this. Is digit. And we'll say n, and we'll just return basically this is n between 0 and 9. Yeah, that's what we want to return. So basically is digit character. There we go. And so if it is a digit, then we'll say, okay, so that number is going to get that digit concatenated to the end of it. And then have we reached the end of the number is sort of what we want to say. So basically, if not is digit, and we'll say input string dot character at I plus 1. So the next one, basically. So if the next one is not a digit, then we're going to do something. But also, we should do that same thing if we've reached the end of the string. So basically, if I equals input string dot length minus 1. If we're at the end there, or if the next thing is not a digit, well, under either of those circumstances, then we're going to want to say numbers dot push number, and number is now going to be this empty string. Okay, so let's see if that's working. First of all, let's just return numbers. We'll see what it's picking up there. So we'll run that, and okay, so we're getting 2, we're getting 12. You know what? Something kind of weird's happening here. Why are we getting all these spaces? That's kind of strange. This is good. It's working the way we want it to. This, okay, so obviously there's something going on with this. That's basically returning true for a space. So first of all, I think maybe part of the issue is we're comparing these to the numbers 0 and 9, when really it should be the characters 0 and 9, the strings 0 and 9. Let's see if that makes any difference running this. Actually, yeah, it does. Okay, so we just get the 2 and the 12. We just get the number there, and we get nothing in this case, which is what we want. Okay, so that's good. And then, okay, I guess for now, what are we going to do? We might as well just add these things up. So there are a few ways we can do that, but I think what we're going to do is basically this. First of all, if numbers.length equals, oh, that's one too many. If it's 0, if there's nothing in this, then let's just return, should it be 0? I think so. Yeah, 0. Great. Yeah, that's pretty much all we have to do. Actually, you know what? Maybe we can do it a bit differently. Let's do something like this. So we'll say, just because I don't want to have a bunch of these like if statements and like exceptions and stuff like that, so we'll just say let sum be assigned the value of 0, and ultimately we're going to return that sum. And then how we're going to get the sum? Well, we'll say for let num of numbers. For every one of those, sum, we're just going to do a plus equals with parse int of num. Because remember, these are strings right now. What we want to add on is the number itself. And is that going to work? Looks like it does. Okay, so that's pretty good. And just to sort of show you, if we didn't put the parse int on that, what would happen? Well, basically over here now I have 0, 2, 1, 2. We started with a sum of 0. We're concatenating the 2 onto it. We're concatenating the 12 onto that. So yeah, not what we want. That's why it has to be parse int. And let's see if that's going to pass all the hidden tests. It does. It does. Okay, great. That feels good, right? Feels great. Okay, so very nice, very nice. We've completed the problem. So basically, just to give us an overview of what's happening. So we've got this numbers array. It starts out empty, nothing in it. And then we get this first number here. It starts out as just an empty string, and we sort of build it up from there. Now, that's, I think, the first thing I want to change, because I have to say, it bugs me a little bit. It bugs me a little bit that we have to convert, that we have to do like a parse int at the end there, that we have like this array of numbers, but they're not really numbers. It feels weird to me that we're calling an array of strings numbers. Okay, so for this one, we're actually going to make this a number. So here's how we'll do this. Basically, instead of this part over here, we already know that our character is a digit. So instead of concatenating that digit onto the end, we're going to say number is going to be assigned the value of whatever it currently is times 10, and then we're going to add to that parse int of character. We actually want to add the integer value of that. And then over here, the only other difference is we're not going to make it an empty string. We're going to start it back as a 0. Okay, cool. And is that it? Let's see. Well, I guess that means we shouldn't have to put in the parse int here. But, you know, before we even look at any of that, I just want to do like a return numbers. Let's try that. Good. So we're actually getting 2 here. We're actually getting 12 here. So in case you're wondering how this is working, specifically this part right here, basically the idea is number starts as 0, right? Starts out as 0. Let's, I guess we got a bit of space there. I just want to sort of provide a visual for this. So, okay. Number starts out as 0. And actually, hold on a sec. We need a better example. Let's go with, yeah, that one. We might not go through the whole thing, but we'll at least look at part of it. So, okay, basically for number, oh, that doesn't look great. Anyway, number is going to start out as 0. And then basically as we go through this, we're running through the string, we say, well, okay, this 1 here, is that a digit? Yeah, it's a digit. So since it's a digit, we're going to say, all right, so number is going to be whatever it was times 10. Well, 0 times 10 is still 0, plus whatever this character is as an integer. So plus 1. So number becomes 1. Okay, cool. And then the next time it says, all right, is that a digit? 2? Yeah, it's a digit. So now we're going to say number is 10 times what it was. So it's going to be 1 times 10, so that's 10 plus 2. So that makes it 12. Okay, cool. Next one is going to be 3. So it looks at the 3, it says, is that a digit? Yes, it is. So since it's a digit, it's going to keep this going, and it's going to say, take that 12, multiply it by 10, so that gives you 120. Add the 3 to that, we're going to get 123. Okay, so basically, you know, etc. It's going to go on like that. And it's going to keep that going until it says, oh, I see the end of the string. There's nothing after this, so I'll just go ahead and push this into the numbers array. Or it'll say, oh, you know what? I can see ahead and I see the thing coming up next. It's actually not a digit. It's like a word character or something like that. So might as well just cut it off there. Okay, so basically that's how that's all working. And then, yeah, we've got numbers, they're already integers, so we could just do something like this, and this should work just as well. But here's the thing. I want to look at this a bit differently, because I'm sort of looking at this and thinking, well, yeah, we've got that numbers. I mean, we could do like a reduce on that as well. Like, there are other ways we could get the total. Surprisingly, in JavaScript, there isn't a built-in for just getting the sum of an array, which seems kind of surprising, but I guess that's what reduce is for. So notice I'm deleting the numbers array. I don't need to know what it is anymore, because at this point we have our number. Instead of doing numbers.push, I'm just going to say sum plus equals number. We can just build up the sum instead of building up an array and then adding up all the elements of that array at the end. So this is better. Well, let's check that it works first. It's working. Is it passing all the hidden tests? It is. Okay, great. So this is a lot better for memory, because if this was like a really long string, you know, maybe it's like 100,000 characters long, and we encounter a whole bunch of numbers in there, well, that's going to make it pretty tricky to actually go through and add up every single one of those things. Well, not just that, but like we're going to have so many, like if we compare it to this one, we're going to have so many strings in memory. We're going to have this big old array full of these other strings. Then we have to parse int those. We've got to add them together, or like I said, do a reduce or something like that. But this is a lot nicer. Instead of having a whole array in memory, which could be arbitrarily large, now we just have this one extra number in our array. So that's like big O of 1 space complexity, which is very nice. And if you've been doing any of the interview practice section on codefights, you're probably noticing space complexity, it can be kind of a big deal. Okay, cool. So that one's good. We just submitted it. It's running better. Maybe I'll make a comment on this one, something about the space complexity. So let's see. Is it indeed going to be big O of 1? I think so, because we're just saying let sum be here, let number be here. There's not really anything else we're adding on to that. So yeah, let's make a comment about that. Big O of 1 space complexity, because no array. Good. Nice clear sentence there. All right, so that's better, I would say. I would say that second approach we took here was objectively better than the one down here. The question is, could it get better than this? And the answer I have for us is, yeah, I think maybe, probably, yeah. So anyway, the point is, we're dealing with a string, right? What do we normally do when we're dealing with a string? We want to find some sort of property or pattern about it. We use a regular expression. That's usually the way these things go. So here's what we're going to do for this one. What's our regular expression going to look like? Well, basically, we want to return something like this. We'll say input string dot match, and we'll put our regex bin here. And it's just going to be something simple. Let's just say we want to find a digit. Okay, so let's run that. We'll see if that works. So great, you're finding the digit 2 right there. This one is finding the digit 1. This one is finding null because there is none. Okay, so then, all right, this one, notice it's finding 1, but that's not the whole number here. So we want it to be not just a digit, but like a digit or more than 1, right? 1 or more digits consecutive. So this one's still just finding 2 because there's not another digit after it. This one, much better. It's finding the whole number there, not just a digit of the number. Okay, but the problem is this one's still just finding the 2. We wanted to find the 2 and the 12. So keep in mind, this is where we put on the global flag. So let's run that. And great, so that's finding 2, it's finding 12. This is awesome. Yeah, good stuff. That's finding everything we need. This one's still null though. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna say actually, first, before we do that, let's make it return, and I'm gonna show you why I wanna do this next thing. So this is giving us like an array, right? It's giving us an array of strings. I don't want an array of strings, I want an array of numbers. So I'll do a dot map, x is gonna get mapped to parse int of x. And let's run that and we'll see what happens with that. Is it gonna work? Well, no, because we can't do a map of something that's a null. So that's why instead of just doing this directly here, I'm gonna say, let matches be assigned the value of this. And then from here, we can say, well, if matches, if there are some, if it's not null, then we'll do this. Else, we're just gonna return, is it 0? I think it's 0 that we want to return. And then this should have matches attached to it as well. So let's run that and we'll see what happens. So first of all, this one's good. It's basically saying, yeah, well, this was null, so we're gonna go down to the else over here. So return 0, and 0 is what we were looking for. Now this one is giving us a null, which is totally understandable because I didn't return anything. So let's run that. And great, so we get 2 and 12, we get just our one very large number over here. That's great. There's really just one more thing we need to do here, which is to reduce it, to find the total of this thing. So I'm gonna do a reduce on this. It's gonna take in inputs A and B, and it's just gonna return A plus B. And when we run that, that should give us our total. There we go. Now keep in mind, that's not the only way we could do this, because if you think about it, we're taking this part over here is taking all the strings that are inside of this array, and it's adding them, sorry, this one's not adding them together. This part is turning the strings into numbers. This part over here is adding those numbers together. And I'm thinking we could probably do that all at once. We could just do the reduce and say, well, yeah, I know this is a string, but we're gonna look at it like an integer. And I know this part is a string, but we'll look at it like an integer. And keep in mind, actually, I should have said this A part, it might not even be a string. It might be an integer already, but parse int of something that's already an int, what, is that like it's gonna do us any harm? Is that gonna be a problem for us? And as it turns out, yeah, it is gonna be a problem for us, because if we just have one element in there, then that element right here is already going to be, it's just a string, you know, we're not getting to this point where we're doing a parse int on that. So I actually want to go and look at the docs for reduce, because there's an optional, yeah, that's the one, right? Okay, so there's an optional argument that we can use for reduce. So see that initial value right there? So our initial value is the value to use as the first argument to the first call of the callback. If no initial value is supplied, the first element in the array will be used. Calling reduce on an empty array without an initial value is an error. So that's very interesting. I wonder if this could maybe solve more than one of our problems. Let's take a look. So first of all, we've got a reduce. Our reduce has this arrow function as its first argument, but let's give it that second argument and let's just make it a 0, the number 0 specifically. So now basically the way this is working is normally the reduce would take A and B to be just the first and second element in the array. And then it'll keep doing that until there's no value for B. Keep in mind, if there's just one element to begin with, there's no value for B. So it's not actually going to do that. Whereas if we put this here, now it's going to use this as our initial value for A, and B will be the first element in the array. So let's see if that actually makes the difference. And yeah, it does. Okay, cool. Now, that's pretty neat. As you maybe could have told by the fact that I had to look up the docs there, I don't often use this initial value here. It's actually something I just learned about recently. So that's really cool. Nice, very useful tool. But what I'm wondering is, will that alleviate the need to even do this if matches thing, right? Because obviously we can't do a reduce on an empty array, but maybe we could if it had an initial value on it. So maybe let's try just getting rid of the if now, and we'll just say return. We'll see if that runs. And it turns out, no, it doesn't, because it's not just that it's an empty array here. It's not that matches was an empty array when it didn't find anything. It's that it was a straight up null when it didn't find anything. So we still, we need to still do it this way. But here's one thing that we can do to make this just a little more efficient. Keep in mind, we're doing this if-else thing, and in both cases, we're just returning something. So I'm going to start the line with a return, and then we'll check the matches. We'll say, well, is this null or is it something? And if it's not something, if it is null, we'll return 0. If it is something, then we'll return all that stuff right there. So let's try that. And actually, you know what? Okay, first, let's try that. We'll see if it works. It works. Okay, so that's great. That means we don't need this stuff over here. Always nice to use a little ternary operator there. It's fun. But I'm thinking, if we're starting this off and we already have 0 as our first value, maybe we don't need the parse int on the A. Maybe it's just the B that needs that. Let's try running that. Oh, pretty nice. All right, cool. So let's submit that. We'll see if it passes all the hidden tests as well. And it does. Okay, great. My heart skipped a beat there. All right, awesome. So this is working really nice. Should I get rid of the space? Well, I should definitely put a semicolon on that. And yeah, that looks good, I think. I'm happy with it. Yeah, I think it looks good. If anyone has any questions, comments, concerns on this? Well, okay, I guess there is one thing that we could do to, well, I don't know. I'm just thinking, like, because here we're doing a match and we've got kind of like a global flag on here, but what we could do is just like a test, you know, instead of matches, we could just do something like input string dot test with, or sorry, it's actually the other way around. It's our regular expression. So we'll say, is there a digit here? Dot test input string. And that I think should work the same. The reason I'm maybe thinking about doing it that way is because that would mean that we could just take this and instead of having matches, we could just put that in there. And then that's, yeah, I guess that's like truly one line, but I don't know if it's better. Like, technically we're doing two comparisons here. We're doing a test and we're doing a match. Whereas before we were just doing the match and storing that as a variable. So on one hand, I feel like this is less, I don't know, taxing, like it's an easier regex to do, but I don't even know if that's a concern. I don't know if that's something we would ever have to consider. So yeah, that's the way I was looking before, right? Yeah, that's how I was looking before. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and finish up with that. Let's just submit that. I think this is good. This is a nice algorithm here. I'm happy with it. I like the reduce. I think it's neat. But now that I'm looking at it, I'm actually wondering which of these is the better algorithm, because this is nice and easy, but then again, it's got this reduce thing, right? It's got matches. So this actually would not be big O of 1 space complexity, which leads me to wonder if maybe this one below is actually the better algorithm here. Which seems like kind of a shocker because it's so much longer, so many more lines of code and stuff like that. I mean, we could make it a little more efficient. Like this over here could be a regular expression if we really wanted it to be, but I think that's maybe overkill. We don't need that. I think this is probably the best one here. I mean, it just goes through the string one time. There isn't like a lot of unnecessary typecasting and stuff like that. I mean, I think this is the only parse int we're using, so I think I like this one the best, TBH. Yeah. I mean, let me know if you've got a different opinion or anything like that. I'm interested in hearing it, but yeah, I think I like this one the best. This one's cool, you know, props to it, but just in terms of efficiency and stuff, yeah, the middle one's the best one, I think. All right, so that's good. We submitted it, right? I think we submitted it. I think we submitted it a bunch of times, actually. Anyway, no harm in resubmitting. Okay, great. So I think we're done with that one. Nice job.